Hi guys, I'm Woodcraft Hamster, and I was chatting to a couple of friends recently and we got onto the subject of prepping, which is something that's sort of been popularised by mainstream media recently, certainly in the last couple of years. Just off the top of my head, here in the UK there's been a couple of TV shows that have come out. One was an American show called Doomsday Preppers, and the other was a UK show which I think was called UK Preppers. And really it just got me thinking about, this might be a good idea for a sort of a short series. It's something that certainly a lot of people I know are kind of, is in the back of their mind at the moment. And it's something that kind of tails on a little bit with bushcraft, depending on the route you want to go. Prepping means a lot of things to a lot of different people, a little bit like bushcraft, and I've said something similar in my other videos. Really this is just a quick introductory video, a few of my thoughts on prepping, and what I think it means, or certainly what I think it means to me, and it's very much based on being here in the UK. Certainly, especially over in the States, there's a lot more scope for certain types of prepping, which I'll go into maybe in another video. But really, it was just to give you guys an idea as to sort of what my thoughts are. I think initially for me, I'm sorry about the plane overhead guys, prepping for me probably falls into maybe three different categories or three different groups of people. So you've got, first off, is the people who are maybe just putting a little bit by, without even realising that they're doing what other people term as prepping. You've then got sort of the next category of people who are actively prepping but only in a small scale. And then you've got the sort of the third category, which are people who are very actively prepping. They take it extremely seriously. And of that last group, I think there's probably maybe two versions, if you like. You've got the people who have a very specific scenario in mind. Maybe it's to do with your geographical location. Maybe it's to do with the area specifically that you live in, or the politics or whatever that are going on in that area of the world. And you've got people going back to one of those shows, which I watched, and it was a very enjoyable TV show. You've got people who are very concerned about, say, an economic collapse, or a huge natural disaster or something along those lines, and they're basing their prepping very much on one of those events happening. And then you've got the other side, who are what's the polite way of putting this? Let's be frank. You've got kind of the crazy guys, and you've got people who are prepping against an alien invasion or the zombie apocalypse. The strange thing is that when you look at these people, they're actually not doing much different to the guys who are very, very organised and have actually thought about this a lot, and they're planning for something very specific. And the guys who are kind of a little bit, far out there, they're actually sort of, making the same preparations as other people. So just as a side note, and I may do another video about it, it's quite interesting that you've got people, because of what they maybe believe is maybe around the corner, we would look at them with an element of scorn, and we would look at them and say, come on, you're being a bit crazy here. But they're actually doing something very, very similar to people that we would look at and say, okay, maybe it's a little bit sort of far-fetched that you think there may be a volcanic eruption, there may be a huge terrorist attack or whatever, but we don't, or certainly I don't think we look at those people in quite the same manner as someone who thinks the aliens are coming, or the zombies are about to take over. But what I'm going to do, guys, I just want to cut for a second here, just move the camera around a little bit, and I'll come back and sort of just explain a little bit about what I do, why I do it, in relation to sort of me, my life being based in the UK, etc. Right, guys, so as I said, to me, prepping is obviously a very personal thing for everybody, and I genuinely believe that for me personally, prepping and bushcraft kind of go hand in hand. I don't massively consider myself a prepper, and I'm just using that term because obviously that's what everybody sort of recognises at the moment. The first question I suppose anyone needs to ask themselves is, what are you preparing for? And for me, it's a very difficult thing to answer, because I'm not a great believer that the end of the world is coming. I'm not expecting a huge terrorist attack. I'm not expecting a natural disaster or anything along those lines. But having sort of looked into it a little bit, I do believe there's a genuine benefit to prepping. And I think personally, it's very much part of human nature. I think a lot of people already do stuff like this. People that will go, you go and do your weekly shop, and you pick up a few extra items that you don't really need, but you think, do you know what, I'll grab that, I can leave it in a cupboard, and I've got a little bit extra if you know, either money is tight one month, or you know, there's a problem. You know, in the UK recently there's been quite a lot of problems in terms of things like flooding and stuff like that. Luckily I'm in an area where that's not too prevalent, but you know, you kind of always in the back of your mind you sort of think, do you know what, maybe there would be a benefit in having sort of a few extra things stocked up in my cupboards, in case for any reason I couldn't get out of the house. And you know, you don't want to have just enough food for that week, and I think that's a fairly natural thing for people to do. So for me, I'm kind of prepping in a very generalised way. You know, because I do a lot of bushcraft, I have a lot of items and bits of equipment that maybe, you know, a regular person that's not into this kind of thing would have. So for example, you know, if I had a power outage, I've got plenty of torches, I've got candle lanterns, I've got ways of making fire to be able to light things like candles, and that's just something that I have for my bushcraft. So you know, that's really useful to me. You know, if we had sort of some kind of really serious event where, you know, things like power and water and gas were shut off, I have ways of taking water and purifying it, you know, cleaning it, boiling it, sterilising it and what have you, which is something I have for bushcraft, so I find it really useful just to have as a backup. You know, things like if the gas went out, you know, as a bushcrafter, I know how to make fire. In my garden, I've got a sort of a little chimney, a wood burning barbecue kind of thing, so I know that if ever I needed to, you know, I could go down the route of cooking food in my garden. Very unlikely to happen, and my whole sort of focus on this video is that, you know, I'm not actually expecting anything to happen, but you know, just in case it did, you know, I genuinely feel quite prepared, you know, to be able to deal with that. And the thing to remember is, let's say it was a power and a gas outage, you know, I'm not expecting to be lasting for, you know, days, weeks, months without, you know, these basic necessities. But I think a lot of people could get caught out, because most people sort of living day to day, you know, there is a real reliance on basic utilities, you know, electricity, water and power, you know, being able to walk around the corner to a shop and buy something, and you know, that's just basic human nature. You know, it's you get accustomed to a certain way of life, and you assume it will always be that way. So again, I mean, I've got a couple of things here just to quickly show you guys, to sort of just to prove my point in the way how bushcraft kind of transfers over slightly to prepping. So I think, you know, most people watching this channel are probably bushcrafters or people that are looking to get into bushcraft, and I think I'm safe to say that the majority of us will carry at least one, if not all, of the three items I'm about to show you. So first off, you've got an axe. Now this is one, as you know, of several that I own. It's a Grantsford's Bruck Small Forest axe, and it's quite a good sort of utilitarian tool. You know, it's a jack of all trades. I can cut down wood with this, I can split wood with it, I can prepare wood for the fire. Now I own several of these, various different sizes and shapes, but it's a really useful tool. For example, if I needed to sort of cook outside for, let's say, a couple of days. You know, I do a lot of wood carving, as you know, so in my workshop I've always got wood, whether it's offcuts or stuff that I'm seasoning or stuff that I've just cut, but I know that I've got a good 3 or 4 days supply worth of wood if I need it. Second thing that most of us will always carry is a saw. This is a Bacco Laplander. It's a fairly sort of generic, you know, most people that are into bushcraft know this saw, and I really do rate them. I do have others, and I take this out with me on most trips, if not this, then something very similar. And again, it allows you to process wood, predominantly for a fire. You know, I use it for my carving as well, but a really, really useful thing to keep around. And you know, I think most households will generally have a saw of some description. You know, as a bushcrafter, you know, we know that these saws are really, really good. Some of these kind of, you know, cheap DIY store ones are not that great for processing wood that you're going to use for a fire, but most people will have one. And then finally, you know, most bushcrafters will have some sort of knife. This is the SE6 that I've been doing some videos about recently, and you know, it's a really good all-round sort of knife. Again, bit of a jack of all trades, more heavily focused on things like processing wood as opposed to really fine carving, but you can carve with it. And again, for the purpose of prepping, you know, you can prepare food with this. You know, you can split wood. If you don't have any of the other two, you can prepare wood with it as well. You can get it cuts fine enough that you can sort of make things like feather sticks for starting your fires and stuff like that. But that's kind of the, you know, the basic things as a bushcrafter. What else have I got here? Other thing I should have mentioned is one of these. Let's face it, we're all familiar. It's a ferro rod, fire stick, striker light. Call it what you like. You know, a lot of different people know it as different names. But this, in conjunction with this, will allow me to start a fire. And I think most people who are, you know, even just getting into bushcraft, you know, and I don't mean to knock anyone here, but you know, it doesn't take a lot to learn how to light a fire with a ferro rod. I realise, you know, some people just starting out may struggle with it, and you know, once you get your technique right, you know, you should be there with it. But these four items, you know, will allow me to have heat, something to cook on in terms of, you know, a fire, and something, provided I've got maybe a pot or something, it allows me to boil water to clean it and sterilise it. So that's me prepared for, you know, sort of really the basic human comforts. This is on the assumption that, you know, I haven't had to, you know, get out of my house and I have nowhere else to go. You know, I'm certainly basing most of my prepping on the fact that I'm going to be in my own home, whether that means I don't have electricity or I don't have water or whatever. But you know, I'm kind of in my home environment, and I know that I can do. You know, some of these people that I've seen on TV, and not that there's anything wrong with this, don't get me wrong, but there are, you know, some of these people who have got really kind of vast and elaborate plans to leave their house and to go off somewhere into the wilderness and sort of survive out there, which is absolutely fine. I take no issue with that. For me, living in the UK, and especially in the area of the UK that I live in, that's not really a practical option. You know, there is a lot of woodland near where I live. It's not woodland that is far enough away from sort of civilization, if you like, that would allow me to, how can I put it, you know, sort of live out there. You know, you're no further than, I don't know, 20 minutes maybe by car, 40 minutes on foot from any sort of civilization. So, you know, I could perhaps personally go out there right into the middle of the forest and sort of live out there for a period of time. But that doesn't seem to provide any sort of practical purpose in my mind. So, you know, that's kind of my views on that side of things. You know, in terms of actual prepping stores, you know, the way I tend to do it is I will, maybe when I go shopping, especially, you know, I'm not looking to spend a lot of money on this, so maybe I'll be keeping out, you know, an eye out for deals. So let's say things like rice or pasta or canned food, let's say there's a deal on, and you know, it's 2 for 1, or you know, something's half price or whatever. I might buy a couple of extra packets of something, and then I will put that in the back of my cupboard. You know, there's a whole different video for me to do on the way this works, but essentially you can rotate things around in your cupboard so that the oldest stuff is at the front, so you're using that first. And you know, I've probably got the equivalent of a couple of weeks worth of food in my house, if for any reason I couldn't leave my house for any reason. You know, I'm thinking back maybe to a few years ago. You know, there was quite a lot of rioting in sort of London and the south of England at the time. Didn't affect me. You know, it wasn't anywhere near my house, but you did see people who were sort of trapped in for sort of 2 or 3 days, who couldn't go out to buy the basics of sort of, you know, food and water and things like that. So again, it's, you know, my view on prepping for me personally is very much on a short-term sort of basis. You know, I'm not expecting to bug out anywhere. You know, I don't think there's many places in the UK where that's a practical option. You know, possibly up in Scotland, places like the Lake District, maybe Wales, you've got more of a scope for doing that, but I would have to travel a very considerable way in order to be able to do that. So yeah, as I say, guys, you know, I'm planning on doing a short series on this kind of thing. You know, if there's anything you guys want to see, by all means drop me a note in the comments below. You know, at the moment I'm kind of looking at, you know, basic necessities, heat and light, food and water. I will do a video about defence. I think that's going to be quite a sort of a longer video, and I'll do a few maybe comparisons with kind of things over here in the UK in comparison to maybe over in the US, because obviously the US there is a huge focus on defence. You know, there's you know, having spoken in depth to quite a few Americans that I know, you know, you've got this this kind of understanding of, you know, the right to be able to defend yourself, which is a lot less prevalent. Excuse me, put my teeth back in. A lot less prevalent in the UK. That's not to say there's not a need for it potentially, but kind of you have to sort of take it from a different angle, so to speak. Probably a few other videos to go into that series as well. But as I say, guys, it's something that I've just been toying around with. I'd love to get your feedback and your comments and see what you think about that as a series, and if there's anything in particular you'd like to see. Hit like and subscribe if you want to see more, and I hope you'll all join me next time. Thanks, guys.